Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to Three's End again. Nice to see everyone today. This morning, I'm going to begin with telling you about how it was in pilot training in the early 70s, specifically 1970-71. My class 7107, began UPT, undergraduate pilot training, in April 1970, and we finished in April 1971. The course at that time was 52 weeks. Our class size, when we all reported the first morning, was 72. And we eventually graduated with 50, with 14 of those 50 washing back from other classes for various and sundry reasons, often physical reasons, sometimes flying reasons, just all kinds of things, who knows. At any rate, they divided our class into two sections, and the way it was structured, we had a class commander, John McBroom, who was at the time a first lieutenant, like myself, and then each class had two class leaders. In our section, we had Ken Anderson, who was a class leader, and he actually was a class leader of the whole class. He was the senior ranking guy. And then I was number 2 in charge of our section. And the other section was Captain John Alexander and Captain Terry Phelps. Then we had a collection of individuals in my class, primarily from Officer Training School, OTS. And they'd gone through Officer Training School across town at Lackland. And of note, one morning they passed out their travel checks, travel pay from Lackland to Randolph, and they each got $1.29. Now that should have told them something, but anyway, I digress. In our class, we had, like I said, primarily an OTS class, but we had one exchange student, Chris Knudsen from Denmark. We had 3 Marines and 2 academy grads who had gone to Tufts University to get their master's. One of them graduated with us, and one of them didn't make it. The way the program was structured in those days is half the class would report on early week around 5 o'clock to the flight line, and the other section would report to academics around 12:30, 1 o'clock, somewhere like that. This fluctuated depending on where we were along in the program, how far along in the program we were. But basically, you get the idea. And every week we swapped. If I was on early week one week, the next week I'd be on late week, and so forth, alternating between flying line activities and academics and other training. The transition between early week and late week was lunch. And during that lunch hour, we had to go home, have lunch, and then change our uniforms, either from our flight suits into khaki uniforms or from our khakis into flight suits. And in those days, we flew with cotton flight suits, K2Bs they were, and I'll share a little bit more about those in other stories here, other segments. The program, like I mentioned, was 52 weeks. We spent the first 6 weeks in T-41s, which was a Cessna 172, and with physical training. The next 4.5 weeks found us in T-37s on the west side of the base. We operated on the west side of the base. Let me bounce back to T-41s, and I'll get into this a little bit later on in another story. Our T-41 training was conducted over at Stenson Field across town, about 25, 28 miles away, and we'd take a bus over there. So then we'd finish that 6 weeks, and then we came into T-37s for 4.5 months, and then we would move on to T-38s for our last 6 months. And then we we'd graduate and walk across the stage, get our wings, and then off we go. In those days, they considered us universally assignable pilots, meaning once we graduated from UPT, we could essentially be assigned to any aircraft in the United States Air Force at the time. That's not true. I asked to be the lead solo on the Thunderbirds and I didn't get it. So that was not true. At any rate, one of the inspirational things we had during pilot training was this book, The New Tigers. And it was written by Herbert Malloy, Jr. And it kind of spelled out pilot training. I could sit and read it from you to gain a real good appreciation of what it was like, but I'm not going to do that. But we all had that book, and even today I go back and read it and with a great deal of fondness. So that gives you the basic structure of what we dealt with in pilot training. And I'll shred these phases out a little bit more as we go along here. So welcome aboard the channel, and hang on, we're going to have some fun with it.